Alright, so the folks at AUXITO saw some of the videos out on the channel doing the headlights for my 650i, and so they contacted me and asked me if I would do an install video for their LED lights for my M6. I was like, well, sure. So they sent me the products, and this is an H7 bulb that goes in because this is a Pre-LCI. The other car doesn't take the H7 for the high beam, and I'll show you just in a minute which one of these bulbs over here is the high beam, because it's a little bit different on the Pre-LCI car versus the LCI car. But they also sent me these little anti-flickers, and they're supposed to correct any codes, because one of the biggest things with the BMWs is if you don't use the right lights or the car doesn't like the light, then it's going to throw a code and it's going to tell you that the bulb is bad or you need to change your bulb. So let me go over here real quick and I'll show you which bulb is the high beam, because for the Pre-LCIs there's actually two high beams, so to speak. There's a high beam that you put on and you run continuously down the road. That's actually going to use your xenon bulb. But for an intermittent high beam, like you want to flash somebody, say you want to pass them or just hold it for a second if you see something in the road, that's actually using the H7 bulb. Let's get set up and we'll show which bulb is which, and then we'll go for a ride and see how our current ones are doing. So our lights light up, those are the xenons. So if I push it forward, then I get the xenon, and that's a permanent, like you're going down the road and you're using your high beams. So I have to pull it back to get them to cut off. So the H7 bulb is actually the intermittent. So when I pull it toward me, I get those. Those are the bulbs we're talking about. And they're just the ones that you just flash somebody, something like that. So that's the bulb we're talking about. But on the dash, when that H7 goes out, it does say high beam bulb. So now we know which one we got to change. And we can go for a test drive. Alright, so let's go for a little test drive just to get a baseline of what our stock ones are. These are the halogen H7s, and so I'm going to try to take it easy so I don't jiggle my camera around. We'll drive around here real quick and get a feel for how these bulbs are. Alright, so right now I'm just running my xenons. That's going to be a good comparison, being able to see some of these as I go around these curves and just see how bright they are. Because there's with them off, and then that's with them back on. You can see they kind of shine out to the side as I'm doing the curve. Alright, so we'll turn back around and then we'll make our little change out for our bulbs and then figure out which direction we want for the pattern. Alright, so we finished our baseline to see what the OE bulbs did for brightness, and so now what we got to do is figure out the orientation. Before I make the install video, I want to do a little testing, because these are adjustable. If you click it this way, the light will go sideways. And I'm not real sure on my car which way is best for the reflectors to broadcast the light. Plus, AUXITO sent this little guy right here. This is an anti-flicker thing that you may have to buy separately. And I'm not sure, because it said for the BMWs, without this it may throw codes, and I want to see if it will or will not. And then also this is supposed to keep the bulb from flickering, and so I want to check it too. So before I make the install video, I got to do a little bit of playing. I'm going to install them without the anti-flicker or the CAN-Bus Decoder, and then I'm going to orient it and do it again. So we got 2 more test runs to go, and then after that we'll pick out which orientation we like best, what works best for the car, and then we'll see whether or not it's got flicker or whether or not I need this little fella. So let's get set up, we'll make the change out, and then once we figure out orientation, I'll make the install video. Alright, so we got our first trial install done, and this is without the anti-flicker, the CAN-Bus things, because I want to see if it's going to throw an error code on the car with or without them. That'll let me know whether or not I would need to buy these as a separate item, or can I get away with just using the little bulb. Alright, so we are ready to try them with the LEDs pointing up and down, but sure enough, when I started the car, guess what? I got the left high beam malfunction and right high beam malfunction. And so this is actually testing it without the CAN-Bus decoder. So no worries yet, that just means I have to put the decoder on. But you can see even with the malfunction, they work. and so I can still test them, but this does prove that you're going to have that little CAN-Bus decoder thing in order to keep from having a malfunction on your dash. So I don't know if that's the best orientation, because I'm getting a lot of light, but it seems to be going up and down. I don't really know. We're going to have to check that and see how it compares to the other. But you can see as I run, it's not quite as bright. It's kind of brightened up the double yellow line there. So a little bit different. I think maybe that orientation is not quite right. Alright, so we're ready for test drive number 3, and this time we got the LEDs pointing sideways, so it makes a little more sense. Maybe it's going to broadcast sideways for me, but I don't know, so we're going to check. Alright, so we're ready for test drive number 3, and this is with the LEDs pointing sideways, left and right, versus up and down like we did a minute ago. So now let's go down through here and see. We'll light up our high beam intermittent lights here in just a second. These are like the 6500K or something. They're bright white. So they look pretty good. We still got an error because we haven't installed our little thing yet. See, I can pick up that deer from a long way. See how pretty easy to see him. Alright, well, we finished up our test run, so now we know what's going on. The lights look pretty good, a lot brighter than the originals, and we know how to install them. We know we're going to have these little CAN-Bus decoders because it did throw errors, and we got to have the orientation. And if I'd have read the little book, it would have told me that the orientation of the LEDs is sideways, but I didn't know, so we'll give it a try and just see down the road. But it did make quite a bit of difference to have the LEDs sideways versus straight up. So one thing I did notice is, before it'll click around to let you adjust it, but because this one has some stuff underneath the bottom, if those are on the bottom right there, because the tab has to be up top, then you would have to use these little pigtails right here, connect up, and then you could get the wire there. Or a better option versus using those little guys is to actually just take this thing and you can spin it all the way one direction, and it'll actually unlock and slide off. And so what you'd want to do is just rotate the whole thing 180 degrees. And now, when I spin it back on there, boom, and put the tab up top like it needs to be for the car, now the connector's up top. So all I got to do then is just connect up the decoder to it, connect the car up to the other end. We'll do, they're kind of like you can't get them backwards. And so you do the black and white, so we'll do a black and white here and a black and white to the car, and then we just have to put all that inside and button it back up. So let's get started on what it's going to take to get the OE bulb out. So we'll zoom in here, and what I got set up, because it's down inside the hole here and the hole over here and you can't really see anything, so I set up my borescope right over here, and I can see right inside of here. You can see my fingers on the screen. I'll show this one on the screen as well, and then you'll have an idea of what the bulb looks like and which color wires you're going for, and also how to remove it. And then I'll show you a little trick around front. I'll move the camera around to the front of the car and show you what to look for looking inside of the light module, and you'll see exactly how to do it. Because if you don't know how to do it, it gets really difficult. Once you figure it out, it's super simple. So let's get zoomed in here and we'll get some parts took off. Zoom down here. Alright, so right inside of here is what we're shooting for. So there's a cover that's on the back side of the whole light assembly, and on the motor side is a little tab. So all you have to do is push the little tab down and then push the cover sideways towards the motor, and it'll unlock. Now don't drop this thing down in the car because it'll go all the way to the other side of the universe. So now you'll see inside the borescope camera the back of the light. And so my finger is up, so this is the top of the light. And the light we're looking for is the one that's got the yellow and the brown wires to it. So it's super simple to get it out once you know how to do it. You'll see mostly my hand here, but I'll try to move my fingers out of the way. And so you got to get your hand down inside as far as you can get it in the car. And then you can see on the borescope, just leave it connected. So my thumb is on top, and what I'm going to do to get the bulb out is actually take my thumb and push down on the bulb. And so now it's popped out. So I push downward, and then you can wiggle the bulb and take the bulb out. All right, so let's do that one more time, and you'll be able to see this way with this camera now. I got that one turned off. And so you can see the bulb right in the front there, right in the middle, and so it's in there. And all I'm going to do is just push down with my thumb on top of the connector, and you'll see the bulb tip up. And then when it tips up, all you do is just wiggle it around, and you can slide it right out of there. All right, so let's go back over here, and we'll get the camera set back up, and then we'll show how to connect up this LED bulb. All right, so we got our little bulb took out. This is the OE one, so it's sitting over here waiting on us to do the change out. And we did our test run, so we know how everything goes. Everything looks pretty good on these. So if you like what you saw on the brightness of them, I'll put a QR code up on the video, and then there's also a link in the description that'll take you over to the website, and you can look these H7 bulbs up. Got the cute little fan on them and all of that. So we are ready to do an install, and we figured out that we do have to have the decoders, and we do have to have this oriented right. Now I got it turned around the correct way right now, but it's real simple. All you got to do is click this thing sideways until it goes to one end. Then you can take it loose, orient it how you want it, because for this install what I need is the tab up and then the connectors up. So let me zoom in here, and we will show how to hook this up real quick, and I'll show you a couple other things once I get zoomed in. Also, we got to check before we put it all in. We want to light the bulb and make sure that we don't have the polarity wrong or something like that, and then we can do the install. Alright, zoomed in a little bit. So one thing I noticed out of these, and I think it's the case for most all the LED bulbs, is that they use aluminum instead of the steel, like the one, let me pull it out and I'll show it to you. So if you're pulling your stock bulb out, I don't have any gloves on, and if you want to reuse it, you want to wipe it down with alcohol to get it cleaned back up so you can reuse that bulb, but I'm just going to clean it up and then put it away. But the one thing I noticed as I was doing the test runs is that this flange is a little bit thicker than the metal flange that came on the original. So what happens is the little tabs don't want to grab this thicker aluminum near as well, so after a few times of taking it in and out, it was a little bit wanted to pop out of there, you know, versus this one staying in real solid. And I think it's going to be the case for all of these LED types that use an aluminum flange right here, not just the AUXITO brand. But what I did, because I didn't really like it being, you know, like kind of loose and wanting to pop out, but it stayed in there okay, what I did is I actually took this little guy loose. So I'll pop him back off. You can take it all the way off. And you'll see the little marks when you install it. It'll make little scratches on it. And so all I did was come in here with a Dremel, and I dremeled out these edges right here to thin that down. And what that does is going to allow it to lock into the tabs. For this particular car, it's really tight, and I can lock it in that way. So I just ground those off. Most likely, if you run into a problem with them wanting to pop back out, that's going to be the issue, and I think it's going to be an issue with most all of these LED bulbs. So the sacrifice is you have to do a little modification if they won't stay in there. I don't know if it's even necessary for every car, but if they won't stay in there, you just got to take a little away where the tabs touch. But the gain of it is that these things are so much brighter than the stock ones that I think it's worth its while just to take a second and grind a little bit of that away so that tab will fit on there. And like I say, may not have to do it for every car. I'd try them and see, and if they want to stay in good, then so be it. Good job. If not, then you might have to take a little bit away right there where those tabs come in, and you'll see it after you put it in a few times. You'll see the little rub mark where the tab's trying to grab it. All you got to do is just sand away on the back side, leave it flush on the front, sand away a little on the back to make that edge just a little sharper. Alright, so let's get set up here. We know what to do, so let's get some install done. And all we got to do basically is take our harness connector, and what we want to do is hook up one of these decoders. And it's all male and female, so it's not really any way to get it wrong other than the polarity. So I'm going to just hook it in, and then I'll go over there once I get it hooked up, and I will check the light to see if it lights. So we'll hook two into the harness, and then these two are going to go to the bulb. And so all we do is hook these guys into the bulb. I'm going to do that one to that one, and this one to this one. And like I say, I don't know for sure if the polarity's right, and so what I'm going to do is before I install it, I'm going to go over here and pull the arm back and see if it'll light up. So I got to go start the car up. If it doesn't light, what I'm going to do is take my towel that I had setting my camera on, and I'm going to put it behind it so I can hold it back, and then I'll figure out which way the orientation is. So do this before you install it, or you might be taking everything back out and reversing the wires. So let's scoot over to the car and we will fire it up and see if we got our polarity right. Alright, so I actually gave it a try, and right now I got a towel stuffed behind it, so my other light is on. This one's not lit up, so I'm assuming that my polarity is wrong. And so what I'm going to do is swap the wires right here and see if I can get it to light up. Now, I have the towel over there, so it'll light up if I get the polarity right. So I'm just going to swap the two wires going into the harness, and we'll see if it lights up. And there we go, super bright. Alright, so that's one thing to look for before you put them in, is to make sure you got the polarity right, because if you install them and do all that and the wires are backwards, since it's an LED, then your polarity is wrong and they're not going to light up. So there we go. So we got our polarity right. I can go over there and take my towel back out, and then I can do the install. So let's get the towel took back out. Alright, so we confirmed that we got the polarity right on the wiring. So now all we got to do is just put everything in there. So I got my orientation right, I got the connector up, I got the big tab up. So now it's just a matter of putting it back in there, and what I want to do is the same way I took it out. Remember when I took it out, I pushed down on the bulb and it tipped it upward. So to put it back in, I want to start it like that, and then I'm actually going to pull up on the bulb and I'm going to lock it in place. So let me get the camera back around front here, and I'll shoot right in. The easiest way to do it is to actually look in the hole when you're installing it. You can see right inside of there. So I'll put the camera back up and you'll see how I tip it in and then raise it up and lock it in. Alright, so we got our camera looking this way, so you'll see that in the video as well. So now all I got to do is grab him and slide him down in there, and I'm going to leave everything kind of out of the box till I get my hand in there. And then as I bring it down, just make sure we get the wires out of the way and everything out of the way. Get my hand down in there. So now I'm going to look inside the hole here, and I've got to line up the bulb with the hole. So then to get it to lock in, all we do is get it set up in there. It's a little tricky, like that, and you can see I'm tilted upward, so I got the bottom part put in. Now all I do is pull up on the bulb and it locks it in place. So there we go, that's all it is for the install. Now we just need to tuck everything down inside the hole and get it out of the way for the cover, and then we put our cover back on and we'll check it one more time, being careful not to drop this cover. Get excited to get everything done, and then you drop the cover in there, and then all you do is set it back. There's two tabs in the bottom. It's really hard to show, but these two little tabs go down in two little grooves, and so you just have to line it up, set it in there, don't drop it, get your little tabs to set down in there like that, and then you just push it back forward and it locks it in place. Alright, so we got that side done. Now we just need to move over to the driver's side and do the other one. There's not much difference. The only thing that's different about it, I'll scoot over and show you. So the only thing different on this side is that these two little cables are in the way, but it's no big deal. You can pull them up a little bit, and then all you got to do is take the cover off. So it works the same way. You just push the little tab towards the motor, and then push away on the cover, and then out comes the cover, and then you just reach down in there and figure out how to get your hand in there. It's a little bit tighter. So with the cover off, I'm just going to reach in there and push down on the bulb, and that unlocks it. And then we just got to fish it out of there. We just remove our old bulb, and then we're going to do our install. So I'll hook it back up here in high speed, and we'll test it, and then we'll go for a startup and make sure that it doesn't throw any codes, and we'll be good to go. Alright, and there we go. We got our little cover back on. We verified the lights are working. So now, all we got to do is button everything up, and then we'll start the car up and make sure we don't have any codes. Alright, so for the $1,000,000 question, whether or not it's going to throw codes on my car, we're going to fire it up and see. And you won't be able to tell until you actually turn the vehicle on, like start the motor, because it won't throw codes with just the key in it. But once you start it up, then it's going to throw codes. So let's see what it does when I hit the ignition, and we'll see what the lights do. Well, kind of interesting. If you see right at the beginning, they actually blinked quite a few times there, but they stopped blinking. So I don't know if that's like charging up that decoder or what it's doing. They're not blinking anymore. That's kind of neat. It kind of flashes your lights for you when you first start your car. But we don't have any codes, so that's really what we're after. And I don't see anything, so let me turn the lights on. So I got the lights on, and then let's say I got my high beam, so yep. So pulling the switch, the intermittents work. I'm not seeing any codes coming up. We'll just go over and check and make sure. We go to info sources, service info, check control messages. Yeah, it says all okay. So there we go. Those little decoders keep it from giving the faults like it was doing when I was doing the test videos. And we got a neat little feature that when you first start the vehicle or you turn the lights on, I'm going to try it again and see if it'll do it. Yeah, they flick for just a few times right at the beginning. Then they do one little flick, and then they're good to go. So, alright, make it a little bit more interesting when you start your car. Get little flicky lights for a couple minutes. Well, alrighty. That looks like that was a pretty easy install. Little things to change and little wires to make sure you got the polarity right. But all in all, it was pretty easy. Well, alrighty. Thanks for watching. Alright, so we finished up our test runs, and we figured out the orientation of the bulb, and we also figured out that we do need these little, the hell they're called, CAN-Bus Decoders.